Hello everyone. Today I'm just doing a short tutorial and info tutorial on the Copic Colorless blender, and a lot of people are confused by this. I think it was kind of misnamed, especially for those of us who are familiar with the Stampin' Up! Blender pens. It's not really a blender pen. It doesn't really blend well. It actually removes your Copic ink, so keep that in mind when you use it. That it is going to take away the ink. It can lighten your Copic colors that you've already put down, but it is removing it, which makes it a fun tool to use on a few things. You can get the blenders in the Sketch and the Chow. I'm not sure if they come in the original or not, but they all do the same thing. So, and mine are Sketch, and then you can also buy the refills. I buy the big bottle because I do use a lot of this. And you can buy this, most places where you can get your Copics from. So the first thing I'm going to show you is the basic way of using your blender pen. Okay, so the first technique I'm going to show you is how to fix some mistakes with your colorless blender. And I'm just going to color in this butterfly here on the edge of it, and I'm just going to go out some. This is a great way if you've colored outside the lines. It's a great way to fix it, so I'm actually going to turn this. When I use this to fix my mistakes, I always use the chisel edge. Gives you a blunt edge, and what you want to do is push your ink that you've colored outside the lines back towards where you want it, and you need to let it dry in between. Make sure that you're not scribbling back and forth, because then what will happen is you'll bring more ink out. You want to actually be pushing that ink back towards where you want it, and you don't have to do it very hard. And some colors, you have to do a couple times, but it will move back in. Red especially, and some of the darker blues might take a few more tries, but you can get that ink to go back in where you want it, and fix your lines. You never, obviously, if this was colored, you wouldn't want to be pushing this way, because you will lift ink up off of your image. So just gentle pushes, and you can get that back in there. And as it dries, you'll see that more color is going back in, and you can come back and see how much more you need to do. But a couple times usually works for that. Another thing that the blender does is lighten your colors. So for today's purpose, I'm just going to be kind of messy here and color that part of the butterfly. And you can use either the chisel edge or your brush edge. I prefer using my brush edge. This is especially a great technique if you're you want more of a vintage look or a worn look, or you even want to highlight. And basically you just rub lightly. It doesn't need, if your pen is filled well, you don't need to push extra hard. But you can see it's starting to lighten. And you can do this as many times as you want, but again, you can keep doing this. And you do want to keep in mind that as you're doing this, it's going to push some of that ink out, so it can push it outside of the lines. So when you're doing it, you want a light hand, and just keep that in mind that sometimes it can be pushed around. But this is a great effect if you want to lighten part of your image. So another. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how you can use different fabrics that have texture. Right now I'm going to show you how I use jean. It's got a great texture to it. You can go to the fabric store. These are actually cut from my son's pants, because he's going through jeans like it's water. So you can take your image and you can color, and then you can use your Copic Colorless blender to give this a texture. And you just wet the fabric that you're using with your colorless blender, and then you're going to lay it down. I like to use the back end of the jeans to press down. And again, you can do this as many times as you feel you need to, but it gives you that nice lined jean pattern. Great for, you you could use for anything, but especially if you're doing an image with jeans, you know, it takes away the ink and gives you kind of a cool pattern, a rougher pattern. And as it dries, it will actually come out more. And you can go over it more than once. You don't want to dab at it too much because then you'll start getting blurry lines. Another one that I tested out and found that I liked is corduroy, especially for wood. I'll show you how this works. Again, just another old pair of pants from my son. Great source of extra fabric in this house. And you're going to use the lined part of your corduroy and just tap it because you want that lined effect. And this would be great on a bench or a piece of wood if you have one. And you can see it's starting to get the lines. And then you could go back in after this is dried with your Copics and really touch that up and bring that more to life. I'm just going to do these ends. And as it dries, it gives you a great texture, and you know, it lightens up a little bit, but like I said, you could go back over that and with your Copics and darken that up. But kind of a great technique for corduroy or wood, and like I said, you could go back in and add your grains, but it gives a really neat technique. Okay, so another fun technique you can do with your Copic Colorless blender is to make lines or polka dots on your image. And for this, I always use my chisel edge and basically use the kind of the corner of the chisel edge. And you can just go in, I've already colored my image with my Copics. And you can make as big as you want. And sometimes you might have to go over them a few times to get the effect. So remember, it's removing the color. So it's actually going to lighten it. It's not going to really make it white, but it's going to make it a lighter version of what you have on here. And just kind of a fun polka dot technique that you can do. And as you dry, they lighten up, and you can go back in and make them a little lighter if you want, doing it as many times as you want. But this is fun to add pattern to something that you've colored solid. And you can also, you know, do lines with it. So if you wanted stripes on your umbrella, you could come in and do stripes. You know, you could do different zigzaggy patterns. And one last little fun technique for you, if you don't have a lot of Copic Colorless blender and you can't get any, or you don't want to buy a large bottle of it, if you have hand sanitizer, one that's at least 65% alcohol, you can use that. And I'm just going to put some down here, and then I'm going to use a paintbrush, and you can use this to remove color. So you can kind of create, I'm doing a letter S, but you can create patterns with the hand sanitizer, and you can see it lifts it right up. So kind of a fun way of using your Copics too if you don't have the blender, or even if you do have the blender and you want to use it on a wider surface, you can use Purell is a good one. It's about 65% alcohol. And really any sanitizer that is over 65% or over, you can use for this technique. And it's just, you can kind of put globs on here, and as it dries it gets lighter and lighter and lighter and almost to white. So you could go back in on the umbrella too if you wanted these polka dots to be whiter, and you can just kind of glob on your